Good afternoon. I have a big challenge. Firstly, because of the time of the day that it is, and secondly, because I'm actually standing in for the Singaporean businessman who should have been here but left this morning. So I actually work, as you know, with the Federation of Asian Bishops' Conferences, Office of Laity, Family, and Women's Desk. My interest in this conference is because I feel that laity is a large part of the laity are business people. So it is a very important aspect of formation under the laity office. When I visited Kun Prachuab 2 years ago, and I asked him, what is the most important thing we can do for laity? His first response was formation for the business community. So when I heard that this conference was being organized, I was really very glad to be a part of it. So that is, my presence here is because of that. But I just want to say a few words about Singapore, where I was born and raised. We are celebrating 50 years of independence this year in August. We speak of independence because we were thrown out of the Malaysian Federation in 1965. Thrown out, absolutely dismissed. And we've heard a lot of history about that separation from Malaysia in the last 2 months because of the death of our original Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, who died at the age of 91 on the 23rd of March. So we were thrown out of Malaysia, and that gave us a huge jolt, because where's the hinterland? We are a city-state. We have hardly any land. We're the size of a lake in New Zealand. You know, we're tiny. So how on earth can we survive? So actually, we are terribly proud of the fact that we have survived. And that is what we are celebrating these 50 years. But survival is a bit of a problem. The government has used the politics of survival these 50 years to maintain a strong one-party government. If you rock the boat, you might not survive. If you have too many alternative opinions and nothing gets done, we will go under. Look at all our neighbors, so big, so powerful. So this is the politics of survival that I grew up with. Don't rock the boat. Don't speak your mind too much. A little is okay. And so this is the kind of mentality, if you like, that many Singaporeans have grown up with. It's very pragmatic. It has to work, and then we will implement it. If it's not going to make money and it's not going to pursue our survival, leave it alone. So pragmatism is what rules us in Singapore mostly. So these 50 years, we are celebrating the fact that we are the most business-friendly country in Asia. It's very quick to get your licenses. It's not difficult to find excellent office space with top facilities, and you can find top international standard housing for your staff, etc., etc. It is a first world developed city in a garden. So we are celebrating the fact that we have this kind of level of development and this very high standard of living, which is also at a very high cost. I must say I really appreciate the fact that since the People's Action Party, led by Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, ran Singapore, we have collected taxes, we have used them for good infrastructure and for education, healthcare, and housing. There has been a very low level of corruption. You can define corruption in many ways. Like we have among the world's highest paid ministers. But the thinking there is, if you don't pay them, they will work in the private sector. So my Prime Minister is paid more than the United States President. So I don't call it corruption, but you can define things differently if you wish. So we have almost 100% housing, we have universal health care, and we have excellent schools with all the kind of facilities you would expect to find in the best American, German, or any other schools. So what is the downside of all this? For doing business, the downside is perhaps that you have high costs, your labor costs are going up. So all the low labor-intensive industries moved out of Singapore without much consideration of our economy, moved to countries like Sri Lanka, to China, to Bangladesh, and others where labor was much cheaper. But the Singapore companies themselves do this. They outsource labor-intensive aspects of their business to the cheaper countries. Now, for us in Singapore, sometimes when I travel, I'm a little bit ashamed. What is the opinion people have of Singapore companies when they invest overseas? What is the impression fishermen have in Indonesia or India of Singapore fishing boats that come right up the delta to fish when they should be further out? So we are kind of a little bit pushy and aggressive in the region. Our business practices, I think, can improve a lot. Our standards, our ethical standards, are always based on what would make the most profit. And not always, you never hear it in the newspapers anyway, a link between growth in GDP and alleviation of poverty, which you heard in the talks we had yesterday. The link between enterprise and bringing the poor out of that poverty. So one of my big concerns as we move forward in Singapore the next 50 years is the way in which we are thinking about wealth creation. More and more, because Singapore is a financial hub, a banking hub, more and more we are thinking about business as making money or wealth seeking, but not really creating wealth. So my problem is this: there seems to be a bigger and bigger disconnect between financial markets, trading in currencies, structured products, whatever you call these things, and the real values, goods and services that are being lived out on the ground. And the consequence of this disconnect is that the value of those goods and services is underpaid. People are not paid the true value of their work. People are not paid the true value of the product they are producing, because too much of it is being creamed off at the top in what is being called investments and trading. Stakeholders, shareholders, the people who have the money and who want to make their money work for them, but it is not creating wealth, it seems to me. I'm not an economist by training, but this is an area of my interest, and I really have a serious question to all the business communities regarding this kind of financial transactions that are without tax and without borders. Whether this is sustainable in the long term is a big question also for me. And it seems to be more and more the foundations of Singapore's wealth. You see, the Singapore government has saved us through many crises. They have massive savings. They paid companies to keep workers, to avoid redundancies. They call them work credits. So if you can prove that you have 15 workers before the crisis and you still have 15 workers after the crisis, you get a lot of money. A percentage of every worker's salary is paid to your company from government savings. So we have actually been saved through government policy from all these crises. But there is a whole layer of people whose salaries have not increased while the cost of living has been increasing, which means that more and more people are falling below what is called the poverty line. But this is not visible in normal life. In Singapore, the poor are not so visible. So we are working in Caritas and a few other organizations to make them more visible and to show the way in which poverty is created in Singapore. The mentality of wealth without work is getting stronger and stronger among our younger generation. They talk about working smart, not working hard. And technology can help you to do this from anywhere. You can sit on your bed, in your bedroom, and turn over the dollars by hitting the right buttons at the right moment. The stock market is every person, even the wage earners, play the stock market. It's so easy on the internet these days. So while I appreciate greatly the work that the Singapore state and government has done and the beautiful country that we have, the planting, the gardens, the parks, I truly appreciate it. I chose to live there. Every one of my siblings have migrated to other countries. I'm the only one there. So I chose to live there, and I love the country. But I think the foundations on which we are building our economy are not sustainable. And this is where I would say that the Catholic business network that has been set up in Singapore has a bigger role to play. It started out in life as a fundraising group of businessmen for Caritas charities within Singapore, but now they are growing through formation and other ways into a more kind of solid group of businessmen who want to think about the ethics of business. And just as a final point I want to make, we speak a lot in Singapore about a code of ethics within the business. That means you are doing fair dealings in your business with your partners. Your supply chain is regularly checked for kind of sweatshops and so on. But I think one question which we are not asking enough is the business itself, is it ethical? Is it needed? Is it helping the people materially, spiritually, morally, whatever? So one of the things I never hear is criticism of armaments manufacturing. Singapore is a big armaments manufacturer considering the size of its economy. And the problems we have in the world today, and this is where I think I'm a little bit naive maybe, or simple, is I always feel, I know there are such things as machetes, but if there were less guns, there would be less death. So the businesses themselves need to be questioned in terms of the way in which we are making money, not only the way in which we are doing business. So this is, for me, a question that is never asked in Singapore. The conversation is kind of not encouraged, but I feel in Catholic circles, within the Catholic business communities, we need to ask these questions. And we should try to be courageous in the way in which we respond to these questions. So right now, they're passing around a little newsletter, which I pulled out from the FABC's website, because I know that the Federation is not very well known among many Catholics. So in case you would be interested, I've printed a little newsletter for you. And if you would like to know the kind of work we do, we would be very happy to send you our newsletter. And you can take a back issue of the newsletter from the table out there. Or you can just drop us a line to the FABC website for any more information. Thank you very much.